The St. Louis Cardinals and number 22, Prentice Gaunt, set out early to break into the win column. The Steeler defense is a tradition. It quickly digs in, but not soon enough. Gaunt has brought the Big Red within field goal range. Jim Bakken will swing his leg in 9 attempts. 7 will be good. Steelers' Bill Nelson, Pittsburgh's quarterback, is dropped by a hard Cardinal rush. It's a rush that proved relentless all afternoon. Cardinal pressure forced the Steeler offense into coughing up the ball 6 times, 3 on interception. Rookie quarterback Jim Hart goes to the play-action pass. Finding himself in heavy traffic, he busts the play. The savvy Cardinal line picks him up and paves the path to the end zone. Hart's 23-yard run will be the only touchdown Pittsburgh allows. The Steelers take possession deep in their own territory. Nelson only completed 8 of 25 attempts, but when he was on, there was a real sting. The longest gain of the day was this 48-yarder coming off the play action. Number 46, Chester Anderson, was also the game's leading receiver. Anderson is 6'3" and 245 pounds, a good target under any circumstances. A rookie quarterback is especially susceptible to a long, hard rush, and that's what breeds interceptions. Goal line yardage has become the private domain of Willie Asbury. It takes 3 tries to move the rugged Cardinal line. With the touchdown, the score stands Steelers 14, Cardinals 19. Hart comes right back, swinging Prentice Gaunt out of the backfield and into Steeler territory. The drive stutters, and even Jim Bakken can't pull off a salvage operation. The Big Red defense offered its own solution. Blitz, shoot the linebackers. Set loose the ubiquitous number 8, Larry Wilson. Mistakes are born from pressure, and the Steelers aren't exempt. The Cards wrap the Steelers again with the big play. Johnny Rowland is on the receiving end. Slanting off tackle, Rowland can't find the daylight. Enter Jim Bakken. Bakken went for 7 in 9 field goal attempts, breaking both the record for number of attempts in a game and the number of successful attempts. Throw in a conversion, and it adds up to 22 points. the closing minutes, the Steelers come on gamely, running their 2-minute drill. The Cards are giving up the short ones without giving up any pressure on the quarterback. Kent next takes over for the last shot at a score. Both room and time run out simultaneously. The final score will stand. Pittsburgh 14, St. Louis 28. Jim Bakken broke records, but the victory was won in the line. St. Louis protected Jim Hart as efficiently as it harassed Bill Nelson.
For 12 years, Baltimore's John Unitas has starred in the NFL, but Philadelphia fans have never seen him in person. They'll discover today why Unitas is rated among the all-time greats as the Eagles battle the Colts. On Baltimore's first series, All-Pro tight end John Mackey pulls in a Unitas pass for an 18-yard gain. The isolated camera follows Raymond Berry, the man with 1,000,000 moves, as he makes one of his miraculous catches. Only this one is out of bounds. Unitas and Berry have been plying their trade for more than a decade. They put Baltimore on the Eagles' one, but Philadelphia holds. Norm Snead pulls the Eagles out of the hole by throwing the ball more than 50 yards in the air to Fred Hill. A screen pass. Snead, to his big setback, Izzy Lang, helped set up a field goal and a 3-0 edge for the Eagles. In the second period, Snead throws to Timmy Brown on a play which attracts a flock of flags. The early going features knockdown, drag-out action. In this case, it's Mike Ditka who is being knocked down. Snead sets up another well-executed screen. Tom Woodashik is the receiver, and the Eagles are the beneficiaries of a 27-yard advance. Fred Miller and Ordell Bracey are also strangers to the Philadelphia fans, but not to Norm Snead. Their rush forces a hurried pass which falls incomplete and temporarily costs the Colts the services of linebacker Mike Curtis. Trailing 6-0 now, Johnny Unitas settles to his task. He's found a chink in the Eagle armor and exploits it with a 31-yard pass to Willie Richardson. On a 3rd and 9, Unitas spears Richardson on a slant pattern, and he carries 24 yards to the Philadelphia 2. Jerry Hill thumps into the end zone, and Baltimore jumps into a 7-6 lead. Approaching the end of the half, Unitas personally directs another Baltimore drive into Philadelphia territory. It reaches its climax when Richardson, despite double coverage, beats both defenders for a touchdown. Coach Joe Kuharich watches in frustration as Baltimore dominates the second half. Don Shinnick makes his second interception of the game. In this game, Unitas completed 22 passes. 11 of them went to Willie Richardson, good for 184 yards and 2 touchdowns. Snead ran afoul of the Baltimore secondary with 4 of his passes ending up in alien arms. Bob Boyd returns this one to the Philadelphia 6. Tony Lorick accepts the scoring chores, and the Colt lead soars 28-6. When a center snap sails over the head of Eagle punter Sam Baker, it triggers a chain reaction. Jerry Hill blocks the kick, and Roy Hilton recovers it on the 9-yard line. Veteran Lenny Moore eases into the end zone to complete a resounding 38-6 Baltimore victory. A disappointing day for Coach Kuharich, a rewarding one for the Colts' Don Shula.
The New York Giants journey to Dallas, Texas to face the defending Eastern Conference champions Cowboys. Both teams were winners last week, and they both meant to make it 2 in a row. It was a wild offensive show with the Giants striking first. Number 10, Fran Tarkenton, showed the Dallas fans why he's the new toast of New York City. About the hottest combination of the young season is Tarkenton to Homer Jones. Jones makes the opening touchdown look almost too easy. A Giant field goal made it 10-0 before Dan Reeves got Dallas started. Suddenly, lightning struck in the form of Bob Hayes. At first quarter's end, it was 10-7 Giants, and the Cowboys were still hot. Don Meredith opened the second quarter to Pettis Norman. Cowboy head coach Tom Landry believes that halfback Les Shy has unlimited potential. Meredith went with Shy again, and he blasted to the Giant 2. A classic play-action pass sent Dan Reeves home free with the second Cowboy touchdown and a new 14-10 lead. The Dallas defense held, and again, last year's total offense leaders took over. Dan Reeves, number 30, an offense by himself, moved to midfield where a penalty moved Dallas 15 yards closer. Bruised ribs bothered Don Meredith since preseason. This is why they won't heal. Fullback Don Perkins moved closer to the Cowboys' third score. With third down and 6 on the Giants' 16, Pete Gent got loose in a mass of traffic to give Dallas a lead of 21-10 at halftime. The second half opened with a bang as Tarkenton found flanker Del Schaffner. Fullback Ernie Coy learned his trade as a Texas schoolboy. The Cowboys wished he'd never left Texas. It was an old-style razzle-dazzle end-around play that turned Homer Jones loose for 46 yards and a very close 21-17 score. But this Sunday, Dallas wasn't to be denied. Don Perkins for 9 tough yards. Last year, Reeves led Dallas in rushing, and this year he looks even better. Meredith, number 17, with the aid of Ralph Neely's blast block, picked up 20 more. This time it was left guard John Nyland, number 76, who opened the gates for Don Perkins as Dallas ended the third quarter, leading 28-17. Earl Morrill took over at quarterback in the fourth quarter and promptly threw a touchdown strike to Joe Morrison. And the Cowboys weren't through either. Two former Olympians, Bob Hayes and Henry Carr, do battle. Hayes won this one. It was Hayes again who finished off New York and capped the wild 38-24 Cowboy win.
The New Orleans Saints launch a lighter-than-air machine, while the Washington Redskins launch a ground attack sparked by rookie fullback Ray McDonald. McDonald bowled for 98 yards, 17 more than all the New Orleans runners together. The new power on the ground opened up the Saints secondary. It was a 1-2 combination. A whistling jab coupled with a crushing body blow. Bill Kilmer countered quickly. A 65-yard explosion to Ray Pogue puts New Orleans in striking distance. Kilmer anticipates a Sam Huff blitz and throws a look-in pass to the vacated zone. When the Redskin defense digs in, the Saints settle for a 27-yard field goal. New Orleans almost immediately regains the ball. Kilmer abandons the jammed pocket and rolls up the sideline for 20 yards. A frustrated defender can sometimes become over-aggressive. It's an indiscretion on the other fellow's bench. Jim Taylor follows good blocking around right end. It's a 16-yard gain as the quarter ends. Tom Fears uses the pause to check his spotters. The information helps spring Walter Roberts for a 36-yard touchdown. The Saints lead 10-6. Jurgensen wants Mitchell to split the zone, but Dave Witzel plays the ball perfectly. Early in the second period, the Redskin defense asserts itself. They stop the Saints cold. All that remains is for the offense to pin down more than 10 points. Ray McDonald obliges with a 35-yard odyssey that establishes a Redskin lead which won't be relinquished. The Jurgensen to Taylor aerial circus commences, and the result is inevitable. The score stands 20-10, and Washington is pressing for insurance. Jerry Smith is the target. When it goes right, nothing goes wrong. Charlie Taylor just seems to attract footballs. Taylor also attracts a lot of traffic. When the defensive secondary tightens up, there's an antidote now. It's Ray McDonald. A 37-yard field goal by John Love capped the scoring. Redskins 30, Saints 10. Washington seems to have found a running game.
Willie Richardson is a reserve flanker for the Baltimore Colts. But don't tell this to Philadelphia fans, for Richardson literally leveled the Eagles. He caught 11, or exactly 50% of the Colt passes, for 184 yards and 2 touchdowns. Richardson was by far the best of the week.
This week in the NFL, brought to you by Hager Slacks. More men wear Hager dress slacks than any other brand. They just fit better, naturally.
The pro quarterback is the one player every fan knows, the one player every fan watches, the one player every fan honors or demeans, depending upon his performance. It is the highest paying position in the game, and certainly the most critical one. The responsibility for winning rests more on the quarterback than on any other player. A pro quarterback lives in a world of pressure. It is part of him every minute of the game. He feels it all the time. He can't afford to relax. How well the quarterback reacts to this pressure will often determine the outcome of the game. In this week in the NFL, several quarterbacks responded to the challenge of their position, and for them there was victory. But for others unable to cope with the pressure, there was only despair. One quarterback who met the challenge was veteran John Brody, number 12 of the San Francisco 49ers. After some uncomfortable moments against the Atlanta Falcons in the first half, Brody regrouped his team and led them to their second victory of the year. In New York, Fran Tarkenton also survived some early rough going, but you'll see later in the show how he guided the Giants to their third triumph. Another quarterback who conquered adversity was the Los Angeles Rams' Roman Gabriel. Gabriel proved his increasing maturity as a passer by continually waiting until the last possible moment to release his throws. Gabriel completed 17 of them and led the undefeated Rams to a 24-6 decision over the Cleveland Browns. But for others, the pressure proved to be overpowering. Bart Starr of Green Bay suffered 3 interceptions, and the Packers suffered their second straight defeat at the hands of the Detroit Lions. In Philadelphia, reserve Eagle quarterback King Hill could have passed his helmet better than the ball. 5 of Hill's passes ended up in the hands of Dallas Cowboys, and almost all of the interceptions led directly to Cowboy scores. In a hilarious clutter of mistakes and wasted energy, the winless Eagles fell to the undefeated Cowboys 45-13. Sonny Jurgensen of the Washington Redskins completed 29 passes, but unfortunately 3 of them were completed to the New York Giants. Spider Lockhart, number 43, grabbed this one and romped through the Redskins for a 47-yard touchdown return that highlighted a smashing Giant victory. Two Pittsburgh Steelers quarterbacks, Kent Nix, number 10, and his replacement Dick Shiner, spent a long and sickening afternoon with the Baltimore Colts. The alert Baltimore defense turned the Steeler passing game into a nightmare by returning 3 interceptions for touchdowns. Cornerback Bobby Boyd, number 40, cornerback Charlie Stoops, number 47, and tackle Roy Hilton, number 85, appearing in that order, all scored for Baltimore. The interceptions can be attributed to a tremendous rush put on by the Colt line. Bubba Smith, number 78 in particular. Nix was almost buried alive under the repeated attacks of the angry Baltimore front 4. The Steelers managed only 7 points, while the Colts rolled up 41 and remained unbeaten. In Minnesota, the Vikings and the Chicago Bears devoted the entire game to open assault and battery on both quarterbacks. Alan Page, number 88, hit Chicago quarterback Rudy Bukic with such impact that Bukic was forced to leave the game. Joe Capps, the quarterback of the Vikings, was smacked by everybody but Bear owner George Halas. The Bear defense, so disenchanting for the past 2 weeks, suddenly turned Tiger for Minnesota and spearheaded a violent conquest of the previously undefeated Vikings. But perhaps the most frightening spectacle to confront any quarterback last Sunday befell Frank Ryan of the Cleveland Browns, who was eyeball to eyeball with the Rams' fearsome foursome. Lamar Lundy and David Jones occupy the end positions. The tackles are Roger Brown, who crushes the scales at 300 pounds, and Merlin Olsen, number 74, a one-man wall from Utah State. The foursome wrapped Ryan in a variety of carefully planned defenses. Time and again, under their constant pressure, the Cleveland quarterback overthrew, underthrew, or didn't throw. The Rams' defense dominated Cleveland in every way and put the Browns deep in a hole they could never climb out of. In spite of the rough treatment given many of the league's quarterbacks, there were enough survivors to bring about some surprising results on the scoreboard. The Bears, with their 0-2 record, were ready for the Vikings with their 2-0 record. And for the second consecutive week, somebody was ready for the world champion Green Bay Packers. As expected, the Packers took immediate control of the game with a 63-yard touchdown pass from Bart Starr to Carroll Dale. This, coupled with a 38-yard field goal, gave Green Bay a 10-0 lead. Unexpected was Lim Barney's upending of Donnie Anderson to thwart the Packer drive at the Detroit 8. And his interception moments later of a Bart Starr pass to set up the first Lion touchdown. The touchdown came with seconds remaining in the half when Bill Munson found Billy Gambrell in the end zone to cut the Packer lead to 3 points. In the third quarter, the Lions' defense allowed the Packers only 8 plays from scrimmage, while the offense forged the slim 17-10 advantage. Undismayed, Starr went back to the well and dipped a 35-yard strike, again to Carroll Dale to tie the game at 17. Refusing to fold under pressure, quarterback Munson capped a ball-controlled 71-yard drive with another touchdown pass to Gambrell. Deservedly so, it was the aroused Lion defense that applied the coup de grace as Dick LeBeau made his second interception to preserve the Lions' well-earned 23-17 victory. In Minnesota, the unbeaten Vikings, led by the rushing of Bill Brown, started into roll as they had the 2 previous weeks. But a fumble in Chicago territory forestalled a score, and Gale Sayers and the Bears came charging back. A desperation tackle by Paul Krause saved the touchdown, but only until the next play. This time, Sayers made sure. An interception in Chicago territory stopped the Vikings again, and again the Bears capitalized. This time on a Jack Concannon screen pass to Ralph Curick for 23 yards. Then a pass to Dick Gordon for 15 more and a 2-touchdown first quarter lead. Bill Brown fought back, but once more the Viking attack was stopped by the Bears. In the second quarter, Bob Wietuska's block sprung Ralph Couric into Viking territory, where a long field goal by Mac Percival put the again ferocious Bears ahead by 17-0. The running of Clint Jones brought the Vikings close enough for a Fred Cox field goal, but another Chicago field goal just before the half gave the Bears a 20-3 halftime lead. After a scoreless third quarter, Bill Brown again carried the Vikings into Bear territory. Brown, leading the league in scoring after an off year, gained 109 yards in only 12 attempts. Gary Quazzo, who relieved Joe Kapp in the fourth quarter, then led the Vikings to 2 quick touchdowns, one of them on a pass to Gene Washington for 23 yards. The Vikings were down by only 3 with 7.5 minutes remaining. But the Bears killed 7 of those minutes, driving 80 yards for the game's final score. Ralph Couric's 23-yard bolt wrapped up the Bears' first win, a tough 27-17 victory over the first-place Vikings. It was John Brodie Day in San Francisco. On the 49ers' first series, Brodie shot the ball to flanker Clifton McNeil, who held on at the goal line for the game's first score. In the second period, after an Atlanta field goal, Gary Lewis took advantage of the Falcons' outside pass rush on a 22-yard draw play. Brodie followed with a sidearm toss to Lewis for a 14-3 San Francisco lead, with only 1:18 left in the first half. Randy Johnson, fighting the clock as well as the 49ers, could not resist the expanse of green grass before him. With only 14 seconds remaining, Johnson lobbed to ex-Packer flanker Bob Long, who made an acrobatic reception, bringing the Falcons into the dressing room only 4 points behind at 14-10. But a third quarter pass to tight end John David Crow put Brodie and the 49ers beyond the reach of the young Falcons. Brodie connected on 17 of his 20 passing attempts for 85%. This went into the books as the finest single-game percentage in 49er history and the second best in NFL history. More important to the 49ers, it meant their second victory of the young season, 28-13. The Saints scored early and often against the Cardinals, but couldn't score in the end when it really counted the most. Split-end Dan Abramowitz gave New Orleans a 10-0 first-half lead when he sprinted past rookie Bob Atkins, who had slipped, and ran under quarterback Billy Kilmer's perfect pass. The Cardinals replaced last year's sensation, Jim Hart, with Charlie Johnson at quarterback. Hart's difficulty had been panicking under pressure and throwing interceptions. Unfortunately for Johnson, he never even got a chance to throw the ball during the first 3 quarters. Kilmer and Abramowitz again combined for their second touchdown. After hitting tight end John Hester, number 84, down the middle, Kilmer threw a quick post to Abramowitz to give New Orleans a comfortable 17-0 lead after 3 periods. Verging on a complete collapse, the Cardinals jolted the Saints when Chuck Lotterette returned a punt 86 yards for a touchdown that narrowed the lead to 10 points. less than 8 minutes left in the game, the Cardinals received a gift when Saints punter Tom McNeil was trapped on his own 10-yard line. Johnson's first touchdown pass of 1968 went to Dave Williams, but St. Louis still had to fight the clock. After a Saints field goal, St. Louis vaulted into the lead for the first time, 21-20, on a 1-yard plunge by Willis Crenshaw. In a Hollywood finish, the Saints traveled 53 yards in just 18 seconds, only to have their attempt at the winning field goal blocked by Cardinal linebacker Ernie Clark. By scoring 21 frantic points in the last quarter, St. Louis eked out their first win of 1968. Through the first 3 weeks of the season, only 4 teams remain unbeaten. The Colts, Cowboys, and Giants put points on the scoreboard in blazing barrages and live by their offenses. But the Los Angeles Rams live by their defense. And last Sunday, their opponents, the Cleveland Browns, died by it. Like most quarterbacks who faced the Los Angeles Rams' awesome rush, Cleveland's Frank Ryan ended up playing the dangerous game of run for your life. At times, Ryan merrily scrambled around in his old-fashioned high-top shoes. But when the game ended, the Browns had managed only 6 first downs. Not once did they initiate a play on the Rams' side of the 50-yard line. The Rams' fearsome foursome pummeled Ryan with abandon, and once he was forced to leave the game to nurse his battered body. The fierce pursuit of number 75, All-Pro defensive end David Jones, nullified Cleveland's sweeps and never allowed dangerous Leroy Kelly to break free. Cleveland's only score was the result of a 56-yard bomb from Ryan to Paul Warfield, which made the score 10-6 at halftime. In the second half, the Ram offense methodically wore down Cleveland's defense. Roman Gabriel began to pick apart the seams in the Browns' porous zone defense by throwing to his tight end Billy Truax, number 87. Gabriel has finally matured and must be seriously considered a championship quarterback. Though he generals an offense that is not often spectacular, it is one that is consistent. And by the start of the fourth quarter, the Rams decided to put away their 3rd straight victory. By throwing with such a high degree of success, Gabriel set up the runs of setback Dick Bass, number 22, a compact blaster who ran through the Browns for more than 100 yards. The Rams' first score of the last period came on a quick slant in from Gabriel to Bernie Casey, who broke free for a 26-yard touchdown. Follow number 65, Tom Mack, and you follow the Rams to their last touchdown. Tommy Mason swept left end to cap a satisfying Sunday as Los Angeles dispatched the Browns with ease, 24-6. As with so many new shows that come into New York each year, there are those that wither and die. At Yankee Stadium, the Washington Redskins may have died, but the Giants continue to ride the heady crest of a soft early schedule and the right arm of the flamboyant scrambler from Georgia. In this game, the Redskins secondary proved to be a great water fountain where Fran Tarkenton and his receivers could slake their thirsts at will. At one time, the Redskins even led 7-3, but rookie Bobby Duhan's touchdown dive gave New York a lead they never lost. The game also featured the return of Homer Jones. In 2 previous games, Jones had caught only 3 passes. but today he grabbed 6 for 179 yards and 2 touchdowns, the first covering 82 yards. Throughout the game, Tarkenton scrambled around and around, leaving the bedazzled Redskins groping in desperation until his receivers had cleared and the passing lanes were open. Tarkenton himself accounted for a touchdown when he rolled around Washington's right side to give the Giants a commanding 24-7 margin just before halftime. In less than 2 years, Tarkenton has produced the flair, imagination, and excitement that New York fans not only relish, but demand. Sonny Jurgensen moved Washington to the last score before halftime on a flurry of passes to his wide receivers, Jerry Smith, number 87, and Charlie Taylor, number 42. Sonny climaxed the drive with a 2-yard touchdown to Smith that made the score 24-14 at the half. In the second half, New York extended its mastery over the Redskins. Homer Jones caught his second touchdown as the Giants amassed almost 400 yards in total offense and 48 points to thrash Washington. Oddly enough, the Redskins matched New York yard for yard, but could not match them point for point, as 3 fumbles and 3 interceptions cost them at critical periods in the game. Pat Richter's 5th touchdown reception of the year almost made the score respectable, but New York is not a tryout town where close almost counts. Besides, New Yorkers think they have a real hit in the undefeated Giants. This week, NFL quarterbacks were beaten, intercepted, and struck down like bowling pins. But they endured and came back to direct offenses that went on a scoring binge for the 3rd straight Sunday. 4 teams still retain their unblemished record, while 3 others are groping for their first win. The twice-beaten Packers are now met with confidence instead of awe. And if the Century Division finds a champion, it might well be one with a losing record. I'm Pat Summerall.
This week in the NFL, brought to you by Hager Slacks. More men wear Hager dress slacks than any other brand. They just fit better, naturally.
This week in the NFL featured 2 startling upsets of major proportions. The New Orleans Saints stunned the Century Division leaders, the Minnesota Vikings, but that victory paled before the Falcons' triumph over the New York Giants. Cruising confidently through the easy part of his schedule, Giant head coach Allie Sherman hoped his team could escape without a loss until they met their first stern test, the Baltimore Colts in the NFL's 8th week. But a look ahead is fatal in pro football. Atlanta caught the Giants stale and overconfident and beat them. For head coach Norm Van Brocklin, the Falcons' first win of the year brought him not only victory, but a certain measure of revenge. Before coming to Atlanta,
Norm Van Brocklin had been the head coach of the Vikings, and his quarterback in those days was Fran Tarkenton. For 6 years, Van Brocklin tried without success to transform Tarkenton from a scrambler to a drop-back quarterback. Every time Tarkenton ran, Van Brocklin exploded, and after a long period of mutual disaffection, Tarkenton was traded to the New York Giants, and Van Brocklin resigned. Now, meeting for the first time in a head-on clash of styles and temperament, Van Brocklin won, and the play that ultimately decided the outcome came on a scramble. In the first quarter, the Falcons took an early 7-0 lead on Cannonball Butler's 7-yard burst off tackle. But the Giants thundered right back as Tarkenton, off a play-action fake, threw a strike to Homer Jones, the greatest home run hitter of them all, and the Giants had tied the game. Tight end Aaron Thomas, number 88, personally accounted for the second Giant touchdown. After running around the Falcons on a reverse, Thomas collected Tarkenton's pass and sprinted 28 unmolested yards to a 14-7 Giant lead. A grimmer aspect than the Giant touchdown for Atlanta was the loss of starting quarterback Randy Johnson with a leg injury. But the Falcons reacted as if they had championship depth at every position. And Bob Berry, who was Tarkenton's understudy at Minnesota, directed them to a touchdown that tied the score at 14 at halftime. The Giants fumbled their way through a disastrous third quarter that saw one of their errors turned into a Falcon score. The Giants' defense played with unaccustomed ferocity and blasted Falcon receivers from all angles. But on this day, Atlanta never made that one big mistake that separates winners from losers. A 17-yard field goal by Bob Etter made the score Atlanta 17, New York 14 at the end of 3 periods. The Falcons' advantage soon became a memory as Tarkenton, on a sprint out to his left, found Homer Jones for a touchdown. New York regained the lead 21-17. For the Falcons, their masquerade as winners was over. It was that time again when the pressure became too much to bear. Or was it? Jerry Simmons, number 44, didn't think so, and neither did the rest of the Falcons. Before the Giants could savor their slim 4-point lead, Perry Lee Dunn had smashed over from the 1 to take it away from them. With almost 6 minutes remaining in the last quarter, Tarkenton had time to keep the Giants' record unblemished. By mixing the runs of Tucker Fredrickson, number 24, and some incredible catches by Homer Jones, he brought the Giants to the Falcon 13-yard line with 1:47 remaining. It was to be a 3rd and 1 situation, and it was to be a scramble that decided the game. Tarkenton rolled to his left. Would he run or pass? Number 55, Ralph Heck, gave Fran one alternative, and it was a bad one as Lee Callan intercepted his pass to ensure Atlanta's first victory of the season. A moment of triumph, a time for exultation, a measure of satisfaction for Van Brocklin, who saw the scramble, a weapon he feared as much as he hated, fail when it counted the most. The Van-Fran vendetta was over. In the end, it could take only a distant second place to a team victory that might lift the Falcons from a team with no direction to one of purpose and hope. In the soggy quarter of New Orleans, the Vikings and Saints met for the first time ever and had the kind of day that sends offensive coaches back to their drawing boards. The first of more than 20 recorded errors occurred on the game's first series of downs as a Minnesota punt became a 40-yard gain for the Vikings, thus putting the ball in excellent scoring position. And sure enough, that score came quickly as Joe Cap's jump pass was gathered in by Bo Burris, and returned 94 yards for a New Orleans touchdown. A Minnesota fumble on the ensuing kickoff helped give the Saints another score and an early 14-0 lead. The first half score could easily have been higher, except for 3 more interceptions and another fumble. The Saints held a slippery 2-touchdown lead at the half. In the second half, the rain had stopped, but the wild play continued. On the first series, Carl Kosulke blocked Tom McNeil's punt, thus giving Minnesota the ball within fumbling distance of the end zone. But Bill Brown held on and added 6 more points to his league-leading total. On the next play from scrimmage, the football again found its way into Kosulke's hands, resulting in a field goal which cut the Saints' lead to 14-10. Billy Kilmer tried to move the Saints through the air, but the football still preferred the people in purple. However, another fumble by the people in purple gave Kilmer another chance. This time, the result was a touchdown by rookie Bob Bryant, a Viking defender, of course. For the first time, the Vikings led 17-14 as the third quarter ended. But in the fourth quarter, the Saints finally found the combinations which clicked. A Charlie Durkee field goal tied the score at 17. Then it was Bill Kilmer to John Gilliam for 39. And again, little Charlie Durkee to the goalpost for 42 yards and the winning margin. Saints 20, Vikings 17. The first-place Vikings, accustomed as they are to hard-nosed football, found that it is no longer easy to play with the little hurts.
Hi, Pop.
Hey, what do you got there?
Some Hager slacks, Pop.
Your papa's a tailor, and you buy a pair of slacks?
2 pair. I'm wearing one.
2 pair.
These are different, Pop. They're Hager Imperials.
Different how?
Look at this extra deep waistband. Fits more comfortably in a wound curl.
Pure wool?
Sure, this wool mark is awarded only to products made of the world's best. Pure virgin wool.
You got this kind of money to spend on the slacks?
Guess how much, Pop?
Yeah, $40.
Nope.
30?
Mm-mm.
28 or 50?
$18, Pop.
$18. At that the price, they're gonna lose money on every sale.
And they have others up to $25. Beautiful.
Let me look at the fit, huh? Cabell, it's so beautiful.
I know you're
Hager Imperial slacks. They just fit
You know,
better, naturally.
I'm gonna buy one.
While the Old South was ambushing the North in Atlanta and New Orleans, 2 of last year's divisional champions, Cleveland and Green Bay, were being upset by defense-minded invaders who traveled north with their own championship plans. When the dust had settled, Green Bay was in 3rd place with a losing record. Also with losing records, but tied for 1st place in the Century Division, were the Browns, the Cardinals, and yes, the Saints. Cleveland's halfback Leroy Kelly, number 44, was the league's 2nd leading rusher going into the game with St. Louis. And anyone who thought out loud that the Cardinal defense would hold him to less than 20 yards the entire afternoon would have been shipped in a crate to Sunnybrook Farm. But Kelly was held to less than 20 yards rushing. And although the Cardinals' secondary was not as stingy, the deep backs, led by number 8, Larry Wilson, made the big plays when needed to preserve the win. The Cardinals also displayed solid running, with Willis Crenshaw, number 33, hammering up the middle most of the afternoon. His drive and spirit was typical of the Cardinal performance as he rushed for just over 100 yards. The Browns didn't help themselves either, as penalties cost them dearly. Pass interference calls set up 2 Cardinal touchdowns. This 2-yard slant by Roy Shivers put the Cards ahead 20-0 in the second quarter. Cardinal quarterback Jim Hart, number 17, found Dave Williams not exactly alone in the end zone, but the 33-yard touchdown proved to be the margin of difference. Quarterback Bill Nelson, number 16, did move the Browns through the air as Paul Warfield, number 42, made his usual 65-yard touchdown reception. Tight end Milt Morin, number 89, also had success during the afternoon, catching passes for long yardage. But by the end of the game, he must have felt like General Custer the way he was treated in the Cardinal secondary. The Browns threatened often, but without Kelly's running, the passing attack couldn't do enough as the Cardinals put it all together to beat the Browns 27-21. Milwaukee County Stadium and the Battle of the Titans. In their first meeting since last year's Western Conference Championship, head coach George Allen's Los Angeles Rams met new head coach Phil Bengson's Green Bay Packers in a replay of that epic game. With Bart Starr injured, Zeke Bratkowski took his place and his lumps as the fearsome foursome again demonstrated their awesome might. But Green Bay's defensive forces have lost none of their sting, as Gabriel and the Rams soon find out. Green Bay inhibited Gabriel's passing game, and Bernie Casey emerged as the Rams' top receiver with only 2 receptions. Under a heavy blitz from Dave Robinson, number 89, Gabriel fired for Bernie Casey in the end zone. Casey had Herb Adderley beaten, but Gabriel led him too far, and instead of a touchdown, the pass was ruled out of bounds. This hotly disputed play stopped the Rams' drive, and they were forced to settle for a field goal in a 3-0 lead. Using Boyd Dowler and Donnie Anderson as a 1-2 punch, Bratkowski and the Packers struck back. Dowler beat Irv Cross on a down-and-out and held on for a 14-yard gain. Then Anderson followed number 33, Jim Grabowski, through the right side for a touchdown that pulled Green Bay ahead, 7-3. But you can't ignore the Rams' defensive unit. Watch as number 75, Deacon Jones, muscles his way in just in time to get Bratkowski's arm, allowing Clancy Williams to pick off the interception. The Rams had the momentum, and Willie Ellison drove over for the touchdown. Los Angeles added a field goal and led 13-7 in the fourth quarter. But Green Bay's defense not to be outdone, held the Rams and forced Pat Studstill to punt from his 16. And Tom Brown charged right down the middle, 52 yards for a touchdown, and a slim 14-13 lead for Green Bay. But the game wasn't over yet. Gabriel spotted Jack Snow downfield and fired a strike. But Adderley got a hand in and the pass was incomplete. The official, however, called interference on Adderley and gave the Rams another chance. With the ball on the 27 and only 55 seconds to play, Bruce Gossett's field goal was good, and Los Angeles pulled out a hard-fought 16-14 win.
Dallas and Baltimore had no trouble remaining undefeated on top of the league alongside Los Angeles. Detroit also had little trouble joining Minnesota at the top of the Century Division, a full game ahead of a team from Wisconsin.
Led by an awesome defensive effort, Detroit rolled into Chicago and over the hapless Bears this week. They all but nullified Chicago's passing game with strong attacks like this one on quarterback Larry Rakestraw. And they stopped the Bears' ground game, Gale Sayers, by holding the superstar to 38 total yards. Chicago's one bright moment of the day came in the first quarter on Rakestraw's 80-yard touchdown pass to rookie Cecil Turner. But for the rest of the game, it was all gloom as the Bears stood helplessly by and watched Mel Farr slice them to pieces. He caught passes and was the game's leading receiver. And he ran. He ran for 10 yards. And ran for 20 yards. And he ran for 40 yards. Doing a pretty good imitation of Sayers at his best, Farr outgained the entire Chicago squad on the ground. Catching one touchdown pass and running for two more, Mel Farr led Detroit to a satisfying 28-10 romp over the Bears. The Dallas Cowboys' doomsday defense treated the Eagles with all the restraint of the Hells Angels at a debutante party. Five times the Dallas defense poured in to drop quarterback Norm Snead for huge losses. And 5 times they intercepted his misdirected throws. So ineffectual was the Eagle offense that their leading passer was their punter, Sam Baker, and their leading receiver, a reserve defensive back, John Mallory. Baker and Mallory combined for a 58-yard punt pass play that more angered Dallas than hurt them. Ironically, Cowboy quarterback Don Meredith was dropped more times than Snead. 6 times the aroused Eagle front four buried Meredith for more than 50 yards in losses. But Meredith's recovery from these beatings was swift, and he went on to direct a sophisticated Cowboy offense that struck quickly and often against a confused Philadelphia secondary. Even though double covered for most of the game, Cowboy split end Lance Rensel caught 10 of Meredith's passes for more than 150 yards. With the Eagles secondary so worried about who would cover Rensel and Bob Hayes, they had no one left to worry about tight end Pettis Norman, who grabbed Meredith's first touchdown pass. For the second time in 3 weeks, Meredith blistered the Eagles with his well-directed throws. Meredith completed 21 passes for over 300 yards. And Bob Hayes was able to flaunt his old Olympic speed and a brand new move. In the last quarter, the Cowboys proved they could run as effectively as they had passed. Setback Craig Bainham followed number 76, John Nyland, part of the way, then freewheeled on his own for the Cowboys' last touchdown as Dallas polished off the winless Eagles 34-14. Through the rain at San Francisco's Kezar Stadium, the opening kickoff sailed straight to Colt second-year man Preston Pearson, who got 3 great blocks. '49er rookie Johnny Fuller caught Pearson at the 2, but it was too late. Following another Colt touchdown by Tom Matty, John Brody and Dick Witcher cut the Colt lead in half with a classic bomb. Earl Morrill, still starting for the Colts, threw to John Mackey at the goal line. Kermit Alexander, Alvin Randolph, and Ed Beard teamed to hold Mackey, sort of. But Morrill then looped a pass high over the goal line, which Jerry Hill gathered in to put the Colts ahead 21-7 at the half. In the fourth quarter, Morrill found Mackey with only one mortal guarding him. Baltimore 28, San Francisco 7. 2 minutes later, with the game salted away, Coach Don Shula dared allow John Unitas to throw his first official pass of 1968. With Mackey's help, one could swear that number 19 looked just as good as the first stringer, number 15. Baltimore 35, San Francisco 7. Hopelessly behind, Coach Dick Nolan let number 45, second-year man Bill Tucker from Tennessee A&I, show his running ability. The 226-pound Tucker eventually paid off with a consolation score. Brody had the 49ers back for one more try, but his touchdown pass intended for Dick Witcher was stolen by Rick Volk, who, after a 90-yard dash, was bulldogged from behind by speedy Clifton McNeil, still the league's leading receiver. The touchdown was certainly not needed. San Francisco 14, undefeated Baltimore 42.
Somebody here order a steamroller.
Yeah, we're all set.
Well, what I got to run over?
These Hager slacks.
You got to be kidding. I mean, that rig of mine weighs 20,000 pounds.
That's okay. They're Hager's new Forever Pressed Plus slacks, made of 70% Dacron and worsted wool. They're the most wrinkle-resistant dress slacks ever tailored.
Look, mister, by the time I get through with them, they're going to have wrinkles in their wrinkles.
Please hurry.
Okay.
Okay, Joe, hold him up. Sharp crease, no wrinkles.
What'd you say the name of them slacks was?
Hager Forever Pressed Plus.
And they're made out of what?
70% Dacron, 30% worsted wool, with permanent press. Hager slacks. They just fit better, naturally.
In pro football, as in life, the surest thing is that there is no sure thing. A superior effort can nullify the greatest odds. This is proven over and over.
a goal line stand here, a block punt there. But nowhere is this truism more obvious than in the big upset, that rarest of moments in sports. This week, every underdog could take heart as the team with the worst record in modern pro football history could and did defeat the undefeated league leader. I'm Pat Summerall.
This week in the NFL, brought to you by Hager Slacks. More men wear Hager dress slacks than any other brand. They just fit better, naturally.
Last Sunday was a day when the NFL's most significant gains were achieved by the most ancient method known to football men. By securing the football with one's arm and then proceeding to carry it forward, come what may, until either crossing the goal line or being rendered incapable of proceeding further. Dick Hoke of Pittsburgh is the prototype of the old-style running back. He is not very big, not very strong, not very fast. He just knows how to run with a football, well enough to rank 4th in the NFL in total rushing yardage. Number 37, running back Tom Woodishick, is another throwback to the old-time ball carriers. Ranking 3rd in the NFL in total yardage, he has provided just about the only bright spot in a dismal Philadelphia season. In the third quarter last Sunday, he even put the Eagles ahead of the Cardinals, temporarily. Like most good runners, perhaps more than most, he also appreciates how much it means to have a blocker like number 76, Big Bob Brown, clearing the way. Willis Crenshaw of St. Louis, number 33, is having his finest year. His powerful running keeps some of the pressure off Jim Hart, thereby making the Cardinals' passing attack much more effective. Tom Matty of Baltimore, number 41, likewise helps keep the pressure off the Colt quarterbacks. Earl Morrall made sure the Giant defense respected his runners before concentrating on his air attack. Minnesota was lucky enough to have a runner like number 26, Clint Jones, waiting to take over when star halfback Dave Osborne was injured. As before, the Viking running attack is two-pronged, the other prong more closely resembling a bludgeon. His name is Bill Brown, and he too can go outside when he spots daylight in that direction. But Bill Brown, like all fullbacks, is paid to hit the middle of a defense and hit it hard enough to move back the people who are trying to move him back. Leroy Kelly of Cleveland led the NFL in rushing last year and ranks only one rung below that this year because of his brilliant balance and moves on outside runs. Leroy Kelly has gained 763 yards this year, also because of his brilliant balance and moves on inside runs. Number 64, Dave Wilcox of San Francisco, is an All-Pro. Number 44, Leroy Kelly of Cleveland, is an All-Pro and then some.
Last Sunday, Leroy Kelly rushed for 174 yards, the most he had ever gained in one game. Not many players can provide the kind of excitement that Kelly can. Probably only one can provide more. He wears number 40, which is approximately the number of players some owners would give up to obtain his services. Last Sunday, against the rough Green Bay defense, number 40, Gale Sayers, rushed for more yards in one game than any other Chicago Bear in history. His 205 yards raised his league-leading total over 800, but kept his league-leading average right where it had been, at an even 6 yards per carry.
To put the ball in play, no team in football has a simpler or better strategy than the Chicago Bears. Just station number 40 deep and prepare to send the rest of your offensive team in somewhere near midfield. But those 824 yards rushing were gained the hard way from the line of scrimmage. Defensive rules. To be stopped at all, Sayers of the Bears must be gang tackled. But rules are much more easily stated than obeyed. The Packers, too, have a history of coming up with a big play, such as a pass from Bart Starr to a somewhat open Carroll Dale for half the length of the field and a quick 6 for Green Bay. The big play is also a way of life for the Packer defense. One must pity a rookie quarterback in only his third start in pro football as he faces one of the most famous and accomplished teams in all of sports. Virgil Carter managed only 4 completions to his own teammates while throwing 2 others to opportunistic Packers Tom Brown, number 40, and Bob Jeter, number 21. Sometimes the Packer pass rush caused Carter a different sort of embarrassment. But in spite of all his passing problems, Virgil Carter did not forget how to move the ball on the ground. On a rollout, Carter easily accomplished what even Gale Sayers could not. He scored the Bears' only touchdown. But, as in the Bear victories of the 2 previous weeks, Carter and Sayers were somewhat overshadowed by the ex-schoolteacher named Mac Percival. Percival, who had never kicked a field goal in college, found himself kicking his 10th consecutive without a miss. Finally, in the 4th quarter, number 60, Leroy Caffey found a way to stop Percival. Soon after, Willie Davis even found a way to stop Sayers. But Cecil Turner caught Herb Adderley before he could turn Sayers' fumble into the winning Green Bay points. With a half-minute remaining and the score tied at 10-10, Green Bay's Donnie Anderson punted from his 5. Cecil Turner fair caught at the 43, thus setting up a rarely invoked free kick. Once again, number 83, Mac Percival, was the man who would decide the outcome. Suddenly, the incredible Bears were in first place, and once again, happiness was to be personified in the ex-schoolteacher from Texas Tech named Percival.
Hi, Pop.
Hey, what do you got there?
Some Hager slacks, Pop.
Your papa's a tailor, and you buy a pair of slacks?
2 pair. I'm wearing one.
2 pair.
These are different, Pop. They're Hager Imperials.
Different how?
Look at this extra deep waistband. Fits more comfortably in a wound curl.
Pure wool?
Sure, this wool mark is awarded only to products made of the world's best. Pure virgin wool.
You got this kind of money to spend on the slacks?
Guess how much, Pop?
Yeah, $40.
Nope.
30?
28
to 50.
$18, Pop.
$18. At that the price, they're gonna lose money on every sale.
And they have others up to $25. Beautiful.
Let me look at the fit, huh? Que belle, it's beautiful.
Hager Imperial slacks. They just fit better, naturally.
Only 3 teams have come this far with less than 3 losses. Baltimore and Los Angeles are still tied for the lead in the Coastal Division. Dallas is still alone atop the Capital Division. Defensive muscle has carried all 3 to their superior records of 7 victories and 8 tries. Of the 3 teams this week, the Rams gave up the most points, 7.
Before the largest Ram crowd this season, the Lions scored their 7 points thoughtfully on the opening kickoff. Lem Barney going 98 yards for the score. The Rams, while visions of Baltimore danced in their heads, quickly regained the momentum. Quarterback Roman Gabriel froze Barney on a pump fake and laid a perfect pass into the arms of Bernie Casey, his favorite target in the first quarter. Later in the quarter, Casey gave the Rams a lift by snaring a Gabriel pass with one hand. With the Lions preoccupied with Casey, Gabriel tied the score on a pass to Willie Ellison, who had beaten Tom Vaughn by 2 steps. The Rams' margin of victory came on a 37-yard Bruce Gossett field goal with 6 seconds left in the first half. In the second half, neither offense showed up. The Colts handled the Giants easily, 26-0, as Earl Morrow, playing against his ex-teammates, passed for 1 touchdown to Willie Richardson, number 87. And 1 to Jimmy Orr, number 28. The shutout marked the first time in 5 years that the Giants had failed to score. The Saints tried hard, but Dallas and its doomsday defense was too much. Cornell Green picked off the errant Carl Sweetan pass and rambled upfield. Don Meredith threw 2 touchdown passes, both to Bob Hayes. Hayes got this 54-yard touchdown second hand, but the Cowboys took it anyway and tamed the Saints 17-3.
In Philadelphia and San Francisco, the St. Louis Cardinals and the Cleveland Browns remain tied for the Century Division lead as they continue to look like the most improved teams in the league.
In their very first series of downs, young Jim Hart and super sophomore Dave Williams, number 80, began as though it was simply their team's turn to insult the winless Eagles. 11 plays after he got the ball, Hart himself scored, and to no one's surprise, the Cardinals had the first quarter lead. But the Eagles did spring some real surprises, like the one where Gary Ballman, the split end, becomes Gary Ballman, the fullback, and gallops for 30. It wasn't all trickery either, as Philadelphia had its best Sunday all year. Norm Snead lofted a bomb to Fred Hill for 31 yards and evened up the score, 7 apiece. Third-ranked NFL rusher Tom Woodishick worked his usual full day like this and later scored. The Eagles actually led in the third quarter. That scared some sense back into the Cardinals. With new resolve, Jim Hart got down to business. and hit his specially trained antelope, Dave Williams, with a 58-yard advance that set up another 1-yard heart plunge. After that, the game looked exactly like it was supposed to look. Number 27, Roy Shivers, got on the end of a 40-yard throw, and Philadelphia never moved again. The struggling Eagles had to simply watch as they were ruthlessly exterminated. Roy Shivers had the final 4-yard shot, and the Birds are now officially extinct this year with their 8th straight loss. When the Browns came to San Francisco, they knew that the 49ers were as much improved as they were. They also knew that they were in part responsible for the 49ers' improvement when they dealt them the league's leading receiver, Clifton McNeil, number 85. After McNeil's 35-yard reception, quarterback John Brody's play-action fake to number 22, Gary Lewis, froze the Brown defense. The result of the fake was worth a touchdown to John David Crow and an early 7-3 lead. Tight safety Alvin Randolph of the 49ers has justly deserved his reputation as a fierce hitter and a clever defender. Randolph, number 27, saved a possible touchdown when he deftly nudged number 89, tight end Milt Morin, out of position and made a spectacular interception. Aided by a crushing block by linebacker Ed Beard, number 50, and some fine running of his own, Randolph ran the 49ers out of danger. In the second quarter, the 49ers increased their margin to 14-3 on the bullish charges of fullback Ken Willard and a 9-yard touchdown pass from Brody to the sure-fingered McNeil. Cleveland quarterback Bill Nelson, looking more and more like the genuine article with each passing week, never let the game get out of reach. This touchdown to Milt Morin narrowed San Francisco's lead. And the second of 2 Don Cockcroft field goals gave the Browns a 16-14 halftime advantage. In the second half, the Browns turned loose Leroy Kelly, and the magnificent setback exploded through the 49ers for 174 yards. Blending the running of Kelly with a fierce defense, Cleveland completely manhandled the frustrated 49ers in the second half. The Browns' often maligned defense shrouded 49er runners with an umbrella of white jerseys. And when the 49ers were in sight of a score, linebacker Jim Houston blitzed Brody with effect. Even when the Browns missed opportunities, they came out winners. Remember the line, the bigger they are, the harder they... Well, you thought it was true, and so did Kermit Alexander, number 39, until he met someone bigger named Walter Johnson. The Browns' offense perfectly complemented their defense with a fourth-period touchdown by Milt Morin that ran the score to 33-14. The 49ers scored a last-gasp touchdown, but it was much too late as the Browns remained tied with the Cardinals in the Century Division.
In Minnesota and Georgia, it was a day of big plays as the Vikings regained a share of first place with Chicago, and the heretofore punchless Pittsburgh Steelers exploded all over Atlanta Stadium.
There are 2 minutes to go in the game, and Washington and Minnesota are locked in a scoreless tie. But suddenly everything clicks for the Skins as they come up with the big plays. Joe Cap's pass for Tom Hall is intercepted by number 46, Ricky Harris. Sonny Jurgensen, after weeks of misery, is back in the groove, and he hits number 20, Jerry Allen, for 10 yards and a key first down. Even third-string quarterback Harry Theophilides is on target as he finds Pat Richter, number 88, for 24 big yards, and Washington is threatening. Then it's Theophilides to Richter again for the touchdown, and miraculously, the Redskins lead. But can they stop the Vikings? Of course. Washington's crushing defense forces Big Bill Brown to fumble, and Jim Yazoo Smith goes 69 yards for a touchdown and a 14-0 win over Minnesota. But alas, poor Otto. This was only a daydream. In reality, for the Redskins, the game was more like a nightmare, because until those last 2 minutes, nothing went right. When Jurgensen could complete a pass, the receivers couldn't hang on. Here, A.D. Whitfield, for reasons known only to him, donates the ball to number 60, Roy Winston. Mike Bragg's punt is blocked by number 29, Carl Kasulki. And when he tries to kick again, Kasulki recovers. And when Bragg did finally get one away, a booming 60-yarder, what happens but a 98-yard touchdown return by number 40, Charlie West. This run tied the league record for punt returns, a record on the books since 1933. Meanwhile, when Washington wasn't hurting itself, the Vikings were inflicting punishment of their own. Cap to Gene Washington, all alone in the end zone for a touchdown. And Cap on a bomb to Washington, who outraces Pat Fisher and Jim Smith for 61 yards and another touchdown, as Washington suffers its third straight loss and the Vikings coast to a 27-14 win. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh's Roy Jefferson, number 87, was having a dream day for himself against the Atlanta Falcons. Here, he takes a 61-yard pass from quarterback Dick Shiner for his second touchdown of the game. Jefferson had a big day, coming up with the big touchdown play 4 times, one short of the record. He is the first man to catch 4 touchdown passes in one game since Mike Ditka of the Bears did it against the Rams in 1963. Jefferson's last touchdown catch came from quarterback Kent Nix, but it was just as easy, as he went on to gain 199 yards in all. Pittsburgh helped its Prince Charming, Jefferson, with 2 touchdowns on the ground, this one by Don Shy from the 3. But meanwhile, poor Atlanta, like Cinderella at 11:45, had to wait too long to start enjoying the ball. Quarterback Bob Berry finally hit Ray Ogden for a 29-yard touchdown and the Falcons' first score. In the fourth quarter, Berry flipped to Bill Harris, number 35, who skipped his way down the sidelines for 55 yards and the Falcons' second touchdown. Late in the last period, Berry found number 80, Bob Long, for a third touchdown, but it was not enough to keep Pittsburgh from waltzing to an easy 41-21 victory.
Somebody here order a steamroller. Yeah, we're all set. Well, what I got to run over?
These Hager slacks.
You got to be kidding. I mean, that rig of mine weighs 20,000 pounds.
That's okay. They're Hager's new Forever Pressed Plus slacks, made of 70% Dacron, 30% worsted wool. They're the most wrinkle-resistant dress slacks ever tailored.
Look, mister, by the time I get through with them, they're going to have wrinkles in their wrinkles.
Please hurry.
Okay.
Okay, Joe, hold him up. Sharp crease, no wrinkles.
What'd you say the name of them slacks was?
Hager Forever Pressed Plus.
And they're made out of what?
70% Dacron, 30% worsted wool, with permanent press.
Hager slacks. They just fit better, naturally.
With a win in their next game against the incredible shrinking Giants from New York, the Dallas Cowboys can start planning for an Eastern Conference Championship game to be held 4 days before Christmas, probably in either Cleveland or St. Louis. Despite the Cowboys' head start, half the league still has about an even chance of reaching the NFL championship game, to be held probably in Dallas, Cleveland, or St. Louis. After 8 weeks of play, only one fact has been established with mathematical certainty. There will be no postseason games played this year in Philadelphia. I'm Pat Summerall.